Hey, Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And welcome to episode 396.
Yes.
Hey, you fans, and welcome back to another episode. We hope you are keeping well and safe, and that you've managed to do something, Doctor Who. Related.
Oh, blame the delay on the internet.
Yeah, you do that, mate.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. Look. Welcome to 96, everybody. It's been a quiet week for Who. As is the case in the run-up to the new series, all the trailers have landed. As we mentioned in the last couple of weeks, the trailers are done, they're out the way. I don't think we're going to get too much more now until the newer stuff actually lands. The only thing we've got coming up in the show before we review our classic Doctor Who story, which is The Face of Evil, is just a very quick chat on some new figures that were released and some news that has come out from Russell T Davies himself around the whole Millie Gibson exiting the show, all the rumours around that. So a couple of quick things to mention. So my name's Gary, I'm one of your hosts, and joining me as always is Mr. Adam. How are you, dude? Have you had a good week?
Yeah, I've had a fairly good week, mate. Fairly good week. I haven't done much Doctor Who related. But talking of the trailers, I'm just curious, because obviously I'm still in the US and you're in the good old UK. Are you seeing the trailers on the TV? Are they getting... Although, we saw them 2 weeks ago, are they getting sort of regular play in between like EastEnders and all that sort of thing, or not? Just wondering, do you feel like the trailers are still out there on the TV, building up the hype, or did they just land 2 weeks ago and kind of get forgotten about?
Well, I'm not sure, dude, because I don't really watch TV in that way, if that makes sense. I don't really sit there with like BBC One on all night or BBC Two or anything, so I can't comment on that, dude. Yeah, I'd like to say yes. I'd love to say maybe one of our listeners can send us a tweet or something afterwards. But yeah, I'd love to say yeah, dude. that'd be cool. And I'm sure they have. I'm sure the trailer has dropped a few times on the old school terrestrial TV and stuff. But from a digital point of view, it certainly feels that way a little bit, because they put those two trailers out together, didn't they? So
pretty much, yeah. Yeah,
it's pretty close together. So you had the big trailer drop and then it simmered down a little bit. So yeah, it does feel like it was a wham bam, and now it's we're waiting for the thank you. Yeah. It definitely feels that way, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is just because I just wondered how the hype's building over back there in the UK. I see people say there's these short little teasers that have dropped that I can imagine are going on in between programs, like real short clips of like shooting and stuff. And I see that he's on a couple of magazine covers this week. I saw on Twitter he's on like Entertainment Magazine, and SFX have released another cracking issue by the looks of it with shooting on the front. So I was just trying to sort of gauge an idea of like how the hype is back in the UK, because obviously here in Texas, I'm still chatting to my regular Doctor Who, to the people in shops about Doctor Who, which is nice, but I'm not getting a feeling of any hype for the new series over here, and I just wondered what it was like in the UK.
Right, okay. So have you not seen anything? Because here in the UK, we would only get stuff directly from the BBC, I think mainly. Is there nothing over there that's come from Disney, the Disney Plus side of things?
There might be. I mean, I don't have Disney Plus over here. We got rid of it because it's rubbish over here. It doesn't. So in the UK, I think Disney Plus has all the stuff that is on Hulu over here, whereas they're kind of two separate channels. So on Disney Plus, you've literally got Disney stuff, which I've seen 1,000 times. And then you've got all the other stuff, all the other TV programs that you get in the UK are kind of on the channel Hulu. So over here, we've got Hulu, which is pretty rubbish in itself. And I got rid of Disney Plus because I'd literally seen everything on it, mate. There was like, I was going through the films. I was like, yeah, you know, these are all Disney classics, but I really don't need a subscription to watch these again. And I tried a couple of the new Star Wars things, which I know you obviously love. And they just weren't enough for me to carry on the subscription. So I don't know. There may be stuff on Disney Plus. But yeah, I was just curious how the hype train's going over there, because obviously we're 3 weeks away now, roughly, from the new series, 2.5 weeks, so not long. I will be back in the UK, not next week, the week after. So I'll be able to judge for myself, you know, what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I'll be able to watch the new series on BBC One. Well, actually, I guess I'll be watching it on the iPlayer, won't I? Because they'll be releasing it at midnight, so I'll be able to watch it on the iPlayer when I'm back in the UK in a couple of weeks. But yeah, I was just trying to get an idea, mate. Just wondered how it was over there.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, the magazine game is pretty strong. It has been for a couple of months now, so that's pretty good. But the only thing I've not seen, which we used to get back in the day, is the big old billboard posters.
Oh, yeah.
And whatnot. So I remember back when... So a couple of examples, like when it was coming back in 2005, there was huge billboard posters of Chris Eccleston and Billie Piper. And then fast forward a little bit to, I think it was season 3 or 4, when David Tennant was the Doctor, and there was, I think it was down in Brighton or in Cardiff, one of the two. There was loads of, you know, those portrait size banners that they put on lampposts these days. Yeah, there was like 1 million of them. It must have been in Cardiff or something, and for David Tennant's Doctor and stuff like that. So there used to be a pretty strong kind of outdoor big poster push that used to happen, but I've not seen much of that, dude, to be fair. So yeah, in terms of like gauging how the hype is going, I think people are just sort of sitting tight, to be honest with you. They've had they've binged the trailers a load of times from the last couple of weeks, and now they're just sort of sitting tight, ready for it to land, dude.
I'm imagining like Shooty and Millie might appear on like Graham Norton the week before, or the One Show. They normally get, or you know, Shooty and Russell. I can imagine they might be on the One Show or something like the week before. They're bound to start appearing on TV shows to promote it, I assume.
Yeah, you would assume. Yeah, that kind of stuff normally happens, doesn't it? Jonathan Ross show, or Jonathan Ross, or like you said, Graham Norton. Those big sort of couch interview style shows that we have here in the UK, they inevitably will be on there.
Yeah, I would hope so, mate. I'll tell you what, that does bring back great memories, actually. Like you said, the billboard posters, the one of Chris and Billie with the TARDIS doors opening the wrong way, of course, is embedded in my mind. I can so clearly remember driving into London with my dad and just seeing that poster on the way in and thinking, wow, this is crazy for Doctor Who. Because obviously, you know, when Series 1 was landing, I think, the hype was incredible. I still love that trailer of Chris running away from the fireball and saying, do you want to join me on a trip of a lifetime, whatever it was. Beautiful stuff, you know. And obviously with Doctor Who being away for so long, it felt amazing to see huge billboards and trailers like that. So, yeah, brings back happy memories, that does.
Yeah, it's good times, doesn't it?
Good times.
Good times, yeah. So, yeah, I think overall we're just waiting for the new stuff to drop. I can't see us getting another full-on trailer now, so we'll just wait a few weeks for that to drop. Before we crack on with the rest of the episode, like I said, we've got a couple of little tiny bits to go through, but nothing that's going to warrant landing the TARDIS to do that as a full-on news segment. But if you are new to the Big Blue Box podcast, then welcome aboard. If this is your first time listening, then it's great to have you here as a new listener. If you're a long-time listener, one of the old grizzled ancients, then it's great to have you here as well as we crack through all the updates and our reviews for everything Doctor Who. Make sure you are following or subscribing wherever you get your podcasts so you won't miss an episode when they go out every single Friday. And we also do a monthly roundtable episode with our writing team where we gather all those guys, or most of them, and we just sit around and chat whatever we want to about Doctor Who. And the next roundtable, which will be April's one, will be out next week at some point. We're on the socials too, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. You can find links to those over on our website, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk, and you can listen to all the eps on there as well. And we also have a free Discord server. So hop in there, links on the website, and come and chat Doctor Who with other Who fans. And lastly, don't forget to remember to check out my co-host's channel on YouTube. It is The Geek's Handbag.
That tagline will never get old. I tell you, I want the t-shirt of it. Don't forget to remember. Yeah, The Geek's Handbag on YouTube. Love it.
On the YouTube. Go and check out Adam's.
Terrible grammar. Just have that on the sleeve. Stuff. Terrible grammar.
Terrible grammar. Yeah, hashtag terrible grammar. Yeah, so go and do all the things, and yeah, you won't miss all of the stuff that we put out every week and every month. So just quickly, dude, first one is the guys over at Character have popped out a new character set, which I think you said you ordered, right? This is the Skaro, something Skaro set that's got the dudes and the Dalek with the bombs attached to it.
So that's it, mate. Yes. It's called the Ruins of Skaro set. It features
Ruins, that's it.
Yeah. Ruins, yeah. Ruined. 2 Mavellans and a Dalek with bombs attached, yeah. A little bit pricey, $39.99, but I couldn't resist ordering this, mate.
Jesus.
I know. It was a thing. And the thing was, because of the time delay, I woke up here. And so it was already sort of mid-afternoon back in the UK. So it had been announced, at like 9 o'clock in the morning or whatever. So I ordered it straight away. I was like, oh, God, I better order it because these things always sell out and, the website crashes. And I was literally, because my eyes were so full of sleepy dust, I couldn't even see what I was ordering. So I kind of placed the order and then thought, I better just check I have ordered what I thought I ordered because I was half asleep, mate. So I got my order in pretty quick. Of course, there's still thousands left. I don't know why I panicked, but yeah, it does look a cool set, a bit on the pricey side. But I kind of have a soft spot for this story. I mean, me and you reviewed it fairly recently, and I just wanted that Dalek with the bombs attached. I never got it the first time round when it was released many years back. This is an improved sculpt and paint apps on it, and I like the Mavellans as figures, so I couldn't resist it despite the price tag. But I know you're not a figure collector, mate. I know you pick up the odd Star Wars thingy, so I'm guessing you won't be ordering this. But do you think it's quite a nice looking set?
Yes, correct. Yeah, I probably won't order it myself, but it is a nice looking set, and I do like the Dalek figure. Yeah, that is pretty cool. It's like you said, the paint job is pretty sweet. I like it's got a clean look to it, but the base around the bottom's got this scuffed look to provide a bit of realism and stuff, and the little bombs that are attached. They look like kind of old school penicillin tablets.
Yeah. Yeah,
it all looks kind of cool. Yeah, so I like the Dalek, dude. It is cool, and I love that grey and black colorway for these Daleks. It looks pretty cool, and the Mavellans look pretty cool as well. The likeness is pretty good on those, and so yeah, it's a nice looking set, dude. It's pretty sweet. I'm just not sure. Actually, no, is it? It probably is 40 quid's worth, dude. Thinking about it, because a lot of figures these days they go for kind of about £20-ish each. Yeah. These days, so you're getting 2 sort of humanoid figures plus the Dalek. So yeah, on the surface it sounds like an expensive set, but for those 3 figures it's pretty spot on, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean prices are going up, mate, in manufacturing. It's just a fact. I mean, like the Black Series figures in Star Wars, I don't know how much they cost, but it's just what it is. Unfortunately, prices are going up. Obviously we'd love them to be cheaper, and B&M always get them for a cheaper price. But honestly, when you feel the quality of the B&M ones, you can tell they're made for the budget price that they're sold for. So I'd like to think the higher price tag on these will mean a slightly more durable figure. Yeah, I guess if you want that, you got to pay it.
Indeedy, yes. And you can order that from the Character website directly, which is character-online.com. And on the homepage there's a carousel at the top, and it's one of the featured sets on there, or just do a search for Doctor Who and you'll see it on there. I don't know how many are in stock, but it's still available at this time of recording, which is Wednesday the 17th of April. So if you fancy that, then get your order in.
Indeed.
And lastly, the other quick thing to mention, so we've had this thing that's been bubbling around over the last few months, ever since the rumour mill got hold of it, which is there was that story that broke that Millie Gibson had been fired, or she left, or her character was cut short, all that stuff. And there was a lot of speculation around why a brand new companion for a brand new season with a brand new Doctor and all that stuff would be leaving the show sooner than expected. And you and I spoke on this, I think, like a month or so ago, saying that this is like a storm in a teacup, really. It's just the way that the character had been written for that length of time in the episode and whatnot. Is, you know, I think a lot of the rumours were insinuating that there were problems behind the scenes. Yeah. Which is why Millie Gibson left, when that's not really the case. So in this month's episode of SFX Magazine, and I think in the US, you can also see this interview and whatnot on Total Film, I think. Russell T Davies was interviewed, and he was asked about this whole thing, about her, why did Millie Gibson leave early and all that stuff. So he went on to say, no, she's not leaving, not at all. We were ordered for 2 years of a series off Disney, and we're delivering 2 years, and the Ruby Sunday story literally spans those 2 years. We are planning to shoot the season 2 finale, in which Ruby has the most magnificent scenes, and Millie, it's some of your most challenging material yet. It will make sense once you see it all play out. And then he goes on to say that it's very unfortunate that these things make the papers. We're in a difficult position because you can't answer rumour, you can't speak to rumour, you can't try and pin it down, because the internet will just run away and either misinterpret or will decide that the Princess of Wales has been replaced by 4 cats in a wig. So he's being a bit kind of flippant with that. But essentially what he's saying is there's nothing you can do about rumour. You know, once the internet has got hold of something and it gets traction, you know, however much they try and then say, no, that's not the case, the internet says, well, that's a rumour in itself. And, you know, what you're saying is not true either. And that becomes a rumour. So it's, you know, all they can do is just watch it play out, I suppose. But anyway, dude, it's Russell T Davies saying that, look, there's no problems. Disney basically said, look, we want 2 years worth of Doctor Who from you. So they've written 2 years of Doctor Who, and that particular character has been written to play out over 2 seasons and 2 years. So that's the long and short of it, as we thought it was. So yeah, nothing crazy there, dude.
No tea to spill. No, I mean, it's nice to have it clarified, isn't it? I guess what's happened is Millie probably got overheard on sets, you know, said, oh, it's a bit late, and she's probably tired one day, and that's been blown out of all proportion. Oh my God, Millie's a diva. She's been sacked, blah, blah, blah. You see the new assistant with the Doctor, so you put 2 and 2 together and make 100. So, yeah, it's good to have it clarified, mate. I think this sounds cool. I love this idea that Russell's got this grand scheme, that he's plotted out the arc for, you know, those 2 seasons. You know, I just like the idea that he's got it all in hand and in his mind, and he knows where he wants to go with it, rather than thinking, okay, halfway through filming, this has happened, he's had to change the scripts, blah, blah, blah. It's all part of the grand RTD2 plan, if you like. So, yeah, it's kind of reassuring in that sense, mate. And it's nice to have it clarified.
Yes, it is. So that's all good. So we can all sleep better this evening, knowing that all is well.
Yeah. Feel sorry for Millie, though, she was getting a right old bashing in some of the tabloids. So, yeah, I bet she's relieved as much as anybody else.
Yeah, for sure. Good. So that's that put to bed, hopefully. So that's there's no other news kicking about. We'd love to be able to report on some great stories and everything, but it's just nothing out there that's worthy to report. So it's all hands on deck, I suppose, for everybody involved in Doctor Who officially. It's just all hands on deck, getting everything finished and finalised and ready for the new stuff. So it'll probably be really quiet for the next few weeks as we run up to that. You watch next week, there'll be a massive story. Now I've said that, there'll be
just after we record.
Yeah, literally. As soon as we say goodbye and hang up, we'll get a tweet. Have you guys seen this? We're like, great.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to our review of some classic Doctor Who, dude. What we got this week?
Well, we figured it was about time we reviewed a 4th Doctor story. Because so this week we're going to do The Face of Evil.
Hello, did I startle you?
The evil one.
Well, nobody's perfect, but that's overstating it a little. No, I'm the Doctor. What's your name?
Leela. That's the evil one.
I must have made quite an impression.
Soanan?
What's those?
He's worshipped by the tribe.
I have faithfully done all that you commanded of me.
I was cast out for speaking against him.
She and the one who is with her must be destroyed.
That was either very good shooting or very bad.
The evil one.
Drop your weapons, or I'll kill him with this deadly jelly baby.
Destroy!
Zoanna, you'll destroy yourself as well as us?
The tribe of Tesh stand between the sons of the tribe of Sevatim and Zoanon, god of their fathers. We must kill the servants of the evil one.
Kill the Tesh. Kill the Tesh.
Coming to the bit about killing the evil one, and that's you. Had you forgotten?
Destroy! Free! Destroy! Free!
The tribe is in desperate danger. The Doctor can help. He's the only one who can.
You are not the Lord of Time, come again to save us.
Good trailer, that one.
That is a cracking trailer.
Really good. It kind of gives off sometimes when we've reviewed Classic Who, the trailer's been way better than the story.
Than the actual programme, yeah.
Yeah, but this one's actually matches it's the same energy. It's got a similar thing to it. So, okay. The Face of Evil, it was first broadcast on the 1st of January, 1977. Oh, a New Year's Day episode back in the day.
Wow.
Very nice.
Didn't know
so
that.
The 1st of Jan, and then finished up with part 4 that went out on the 22nd of January. So, dude, January in 1977 would have been sweet.
Yeah.
If you're a Doctor Who fan. Yeah. Anyway, it was written by Chris Boucher. It was directed by Pennant Roberts. Stars Tom Baker and Louise Jameson as Leela, with a fairly decent sized supporting cast, and the synopsis is short and sweet. The Doctor arrives on a planet where two tribes, the savage Savateam and the technically brilliant Tesh, are at war. He meets Leela, an exile from the Savateam, and discovers that their god of evil is apparently himself. So, dude...
Short, sweet.
Another Tom Baker story, eh?
Yeah.
Another one. So, The Face of Evil, mate. What are your thoughts off the bat with this one?
It's slightly better than I was expecting this one, actually. I think it's got a fantastic concept to it. A really good story. And I thought it was a really nice introduction for Leela as well. I really liked, the way the relationship built between Leela and the Doctor, and his dislike of her use of violence to get out of situations, which becomes a bit of a running theme. But so it's all good. Story's good. I thought the cast were really into it as well. Casts were good. Sets look great. Forest set. It's all studio bound. So a lot of positives on this one, mate. But I have to say the only negative, and it's a sort of big one, is that it did kind of start losing me about halfway in. So by about episode 3 and episode 4, I was getting just finding it a little bit ploddy. I was getting quite bored, to be honest. But overall, I'm trying to look at the stories overall, because when I finished it, I was a bit like, I was kind of glad I'd finished it, if you know what I mean. I was like, I didn't dislike it, but I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm glad that one's done. But looking at the story overall, it started off very positively for me. So... bit of a mixed bag, I guess. I thought it was a very good story. I just got a bit bored in the middle and towards the end. But yeah, most of the stuff I've got to say on this, mate, is positive. I think overall it is definitely better than I remembered it being as a story. But just a bit ploddy.
A bit ploddy.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair enough, dude. Similar thoughts for me on this one, man. Yeah, I think there's some great stuff in here, and
there is.
It's almost like when you get those first episodes with a new companion and whatnot. I imagine the very first time you watch this one, or when it was going out live back in the 70s, it would have been quite exciting to see a brand new companion with the Doctor and so on. So it's got even though the story itself is nothing revolutionary, the only cool part about the story that's very different is that it turns out that the Doctor had visited the planet before, planted his personality into the artificial intelligence thing, and it had just gone mental.
And so now, great idea, isn't it? Love that.
Yes, yeah. So that's a very, that's a unique thing, to have, and it's to hear the Doctor's voice coming through the spacesuit and stuff, and then when they later on go in and see the Doctor's face up on the screens and stuff. So it's not the Doctor, but it's the consciousness and stuff of the computer, whatnot. That's all quite cool. So there's some good stuff to it, and some of the cast members who are the supporting cast members are really into it, which is good. But I do agree with you though, mate. There are a few times where you kind of get a little bit, it goes a little bit lost on itself. Yeah. Where it's difficult to explain. I think we've used this before, where things are happening but nothing's happening. If that makes sense.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So there's quite a bit of talking. There's a lot of planning. And there's things that are going on, but like 10 minutes have gone past and you think, well, nothing's really happened, which I think is the best way to describe it, especially in episode 3. But that's the case with most, though, to be fair. That's if you're going to get an area of padding or a bit slow down, whatever. As we all know, it's typically episode 3 of a 4-parter of Classic Who and whatnot. So, I do like it. It's not terrible at all. It's got some cool stuff, but yeah, like you, I was I did have to sort of get some matchsticks and hold my eyelids open as we got deeper into the story. And then in typical Classic Who fashion, it doesn't have a massive build up to a finale as such, and then before you know it, in the last literally 20 seconds, it's the Doctor leaving, and Leela legs it into the TARDIS. She's like not taking no for an answer, so she's off as well. So all that wraps up really quick in the last sort of 20-30 seconds with those two. So yeah, it's not too bad.
It's not too bad, and a lot of people say it's because it's in a very strong season. I think a lot of people feel this one gets a bit buried in the mix, which I kind of see as well. But I feel like you said that. And that's why I said that's the perfect way to describe it. There's a lot of explaining going on, a lot of expedition and stuff, which is all good, and all the characters are quite interesting. But like you said, you do, because it seems a bit contained, they do sort of move from the forest to the hut or whatever it is they're living in, to the forest, back to the hut, and then back to the face. It's a little bit goes around in circles. And I think, by sort of the second sort of half of the story, I was just finding myself getting a tad bored, even though I was really invested in the story. I think that's the thing. That's why I'm a bit conflicted, because I loved all the ideas in it. And because I haven't watched this one for a while, it was almost like watch it for the first time, to be honest. I couldn't remember anything about why the Doctor's face was in the wall, why he was the evil one. I'd really had forgotten this story pretty much. So it was almost like watching it for the first time with me, even though I've definitely seen it before. And I would imagine I've watched it more than once in the past. But yeah, I kind of felt like I was almost going into this cold. So I was invested in it, and I was loving some of the stuff coming out, in terms of the storyline. But yeah, I don't know, mate. It just felt like it needed tightening up to me. And this is a common thing with Classic Who. But something about this one just seemed sort of more plotty than some of the others, if you like. If you look at like Robots of Death, the next story, that is fantastic. I love Robots of Death, and I don't think there's any point in that story where I felt like I did in this one, where I was like looking at my watch thinking, how long we got left of this episode? I was a bit clock watching on this at times. So yeah. So although that's a common thing with Doctor Who, I think this one, for whatever reason, despite being a bit of an underrated classic, I guess, it just has too much padding, I think. Or goes around in circles a bit too. I don't know. There's something about it that just doesn't quite make it an absolute gem. And I feel like it had the potential to be that. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. I feel like this had the potential to be an absolute classic, because of the concept. And for whatever reason, it kind of just falls short a bit of that. And I don't know, I can't quite put my finger on why, because as I said, production-wise, it's brilliant. The production standards for 1977 Doctor Who, that set looks fantastic. The actors are really good. They're really into the parts they're playing. Tom's on good form. Leela's fantastic as a new companion, and it's a good introduction for it. So there's lots of things going for it in this story. It's got lots of things going for it, but it just falls short somehow.
No, I completely agree with that, bud.
Yeah.
It does fall short just a wee bit, doesn't it? It's almost one of those things where, as you said, it just needed tightening up a little bit. And the thing is, there's not really, unless you're going to introduce a brand new tribe or a brand new character, or you put some sort of twist in there. The writers had the writer, should I say, who was this Chris Bosher. So he's kind of written himself into a corner almost, because you can't really do anything. You've got these two tribes of people, and then you've got the, you've got the whole praying to this false god, it turns out, and and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So probably on paper, when they're going through the script and everything, it's like, okay, we've got this really cool story. There's lots going on. But then in practice, when it comes to putting it together, it's like, well, in reality, there's not a great deal going on, is there? So unless you invent something else to twist the story or introduce something, then it was always going to be a bit, a bit paint by numbers, I guess, once the story elements had been established. So the first episode is not too bad, when you're trying to figure out exactly what's going on, and there's a few scenes where, so there's a bit where we're with the Sever team. There's a bit where it's like an old base from an old expedition from the dudes that landed there before, wasn't it? So their base is full up of like space helmets and other bits and bobs and
and I love that idea. Yeah, so that's cool. And there's a section round the back, which is an oversimplification, but it's the bit where the shaman in the tribe. It's a character called Neva, the bald guy with the beard, who was really going for it at times. So in that area, he communicates with who is it, Zaunon, the this god who they think it's a god anyway. So once you've got those key elements in place, and then you get that rocking and rolling through the first episode, which was kind of cool because the Doctor's in that area when Neva's not in there, and he thinks, well, there's all this stuff here. This doesn't match up. So he's investigating as well, and you're kind of along for the journey. And then, once you've got that established, that's what I mean. There's nowhere else to go, really. You just have to, there's a bit of infighting between those dudes. You've got in the first couple of episodes or first 3 episodes, you've got the head leader of the Sava team. He's very shouty and stuff like that. But you've got one of the other guys who I think was in Coronation Street for a long time. I couldn't place him. I knew his face really well. Caleb, is that his name? Caleb?
Yeah.
Caleb.
Leslie Schofield.
Yeah. Now, what was he from? Because
EastEnders, sorry. He was in EastEnders for
EastEnders, was it? Right, yeah.
For a few years back in the day. He was actually in Star Wars as well. He was in...
That's where I know him from. Yeah, it's got to be Star Wars, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, he played one of the Imperial officers in Star Wars. But anyway, so that character, he was kind of looking to overthrow. He was a bit bolshy. We've seen that, a billion times with this sort of power struggle. So there's a bit of infighting with those guys and whatnot. And then fast forward throughout the rest of the story, when you go up, they go up through the... a bit of a Mount Rushmore thing where the Doctor's head is in the mountain,
which is great.
Because they've deemed him as the evil one, even though the Doctor can't remember, and he starts to get his memory back throughout. He goes through the mountain into the thing, and then he meets up with the Tesh, who they think he's like the returning sort of deity sort of thing. But he sort of shoots himself in the foot very quickly with that.
I don't know why he didn't play along with it. I kept thinking, just play along with it and do what you need to do. Like, I don't know why he kept exposed himself like as not being the god.
Yeah. He sort of shoots himself in the foot, doesn't he? And so that's part 3. And so once you get into that bit when you've met both tribes and things have been established and stuff, it's a little bit ploddy from there. It's a little bit not much going on. I mean, some of the scenes that you see played out, like there's a scene where Leela's in the corridors and she's trying to evade being killed by the Tesh. They've got their ray guns and whatnot. Scenes like that go on for a long time.
And it's such a small corridor as well, as it's like literally two corridors with a mirror in between them, and they have to keep going around it. Because I think that's the thing you said on paper. There was probably scenes that should come alive when they start filming this, but I think that's a prime example. So on paper, you think, oh yeah, from episode 3 and 4 onwards, we switched to the spaceship. So you think, oh, it's a change of scenery. It's going to keep the viewer invested. But I think because it's such a small set that they're having to work with, even that change quickly becomes a bit boring. Like you said, you just get Mille, bless her, running around trying to shoot people around the same, bend of the ship.
Yeah, and the designers on the show back then didn't really have that kind of... not that you'd expect them to, but when someone's firing a ray gun, the kind of the curved rays that come out of the gun. It looks like a Wi-Fi signal logo.
It does, yeah.
Or icon.
And the sound effect's hilarious, isn't it? I can't remember now.
Yeah. So when someone's firing that gun, it's just like a long stream of stuff, and it just lasts what feels like for ages. So it's not that short, snappy kind of, fire a few shots and then go back to cover. They just dip around the corner and just hold this thing, and then for about 10, 15 seconds, it's just them looking in that direction, and then the special effect coming out of the gun and stuff. So it all feels really sort of
static,
slow and static, in those bits. So, but then there's a kind of a cool climax, I suppose. The Doctor plugs himself back in. This is after Neva breaks in with the big cannon thing, and he shoots the big orange face Doctor. And then ultimately the Doctor plugs himself back in and resets it and has a bit of a chat with the thing. So that's kind of cool. And then the Doctor realises as well, doesn't he, that both the tribes, the Tesh and the Savateam, they are actually descendants from the same crew, the Mordi expedition. So the Tesh, they were the technician dudes, and they were involved in this deadly exercise thing with eugenics and whatnot. So it's all sort of really sci-fi, techie stuff. It's all there. It sounds kind of cool. So story-wise, dude, no real complaints. It's just, I imagine, what's the book of this like? Do you reckon? Who novelised it? Oh, Terrence Dicks. Do you know what I was about to say? The book's probably really, really good.
Yeah, that's a good shout, actually, mate. I bet the book is brilliant, especially if it's written by Terrence, because the actual story itself is really good, isn't it? I love this idea of the Doctor has, it's kind of his ego has been fed into this computer, and he didn't even realise, that he's been there before, and it's kind of his fault, and he has to go back and correct it. And all the digital stuff with Tom's face as the computer and the who am I? It's kind of classic sci-fi. It's the kind of sort of thing I absolutely love it when Doctor Who goes down this route and does something a little bit what's the word I'm looking for? Not supernatural. A little bit just a bit out there, a bit
out there.
A little bit out there and a little bit off the beaten track. So I love all that stuff, and you're probably right. I bet it is a great book. I'm sure somebody out there listening will have read this and will be able to tell us. I'll have to try and track down the target of it, because this is the sort of story I would love to read. I think this would be a great book.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So according to Wiki, the book explains, which we don't see in the TV show, that the Doctor's earlier intervention took place very shortly after his regeneration into the Fourth Doctor. So that explains why he was confused and disorientated, which explains his mistakes and, forgetting having made them until he was sort of forcibly reminded in the episode. So I think that gives a bit of backstory when he was first on the planet and how he did all that stuff. Yeah.
That sounds like the lovely sort of detail that Terrence Dicks is so well known for adding into any novelisation he does. He just always fills in these little gaps and puts in lovely moments. So yeah, I must track this down as a book. I'll have to get myself down to half-price books again.
Half-price books in the US. That's a cool shop.
I live in there, mate. I absolutely live in there.
The sets were kind of cool in a couple of places, dude. There was one set where the Doctor and Leela had just escaped, and they were out in the forest, and the set looked really big. Like the cameras are it's pulled back quite a lot. It's quite a wide angle. These quite tall trees and stuff. It's it looked really cool. Like I don't know what was going on at that particular time. I think this was done at, was it Ealing? I think it must have been Ealing back in that period in the 70s, Ealing Studios.
Well,
But who was the, do we have any technical deets on who was that stuff? So lighting, I don't recognise these names, but there was a couple of scenes, dude, where the colour grading and the way it was lit had a really different feel to the rest of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
It was when they were out, not all of the outside scenes in the woods and the forest, like when the Savateam are chasing the Doctor and they've got their bows and arrows and whatnot and they're after them.
Yeah.
It wasn't those scenes, because that looked fairly like they just turned all the lights up, as they usually do. But there was a couple of scenes where the lighting was really cool and it had a slightly warmer tone to everything. And it just looked like they'd had I don't know, like it almost felt like on that particular day, whoever was the lighting dude and the cinematographer and all that stuff, they just weren't there, so they drafted someone else and they did it their way, if that makes sense. It looked like different people had done it versus the rest of the episode. So there was a couple of really cool sets, but then the rest of it was like the opposite. It's like goes from one extreme to the other. Like the other sets were just tiny little spaces and little corridors and stuff. So the only other set that was cool was the when they go into the section at the end, where it's got that big hexagon circular shape thing with the big screens around it.
Oh yeah,
where the Doctor passes out and stuff. So that was kind of cool. But so a couple of good stuff on that, and production wise and stuff. It didn't look bad for a 70s show, and I think there was, I don't know the exact dates technically, but it almost felt like they sourced a couple of different bits of film or TV tape for it, because there was a few scenes where it was absolutely pin sharp, looked really nice, but then there was a few other scenes where it was all sort of soft focus and fuzzy, it felt like. So overall, dude, the sets and the production and stuff we're seeing a lot worse, man, in Classic Who.
Yeah, no, I thought the production looked very good. I mean, the forest set looked fantastic for the time, and you're right, I think a lot of it's down to the lighting of it. I think it also because it's shot on film, so I guess that's probably because I'm assuming it was done at Ealing Studios, so they've shot the forest set on film, which just makes it look so much more expensive. Just gives it a totally different feel to what you're watching, because when you then switch back to videotape and you're in the studio with it's all studio, but you're in the other sets, it just doesn't look as classy because it's not on film. So yeah, the forest sets look great. I couldn't remember if it was this one or Planet of Evil that people always talk about the forest sets. I think it's Planet of Evil that always gets a lot of recognition for having such a really good forest set. I think this one's just as good. And the other sets are very much traditional Doctor Who, like the spaceship corridors are white. They look like egg boxes that have been stacked up, So that's nothing wrong with it, but that's very traditional Doctor Who, the kind of thing you expect to see from a classic episode. So when you see the forest and it looks just that little bit better than you would imagine, I think it really stands out. So yeah, production-wise, great stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you your opinion on something that was, this always is fascinating to me, why they do this. But in the very, very, very first part of the story, part one, the Doctor comes out of the TARDIS and he's looking into the camera. And he's doing this thing like, I think this is not Hyde Park. It could be a nexial discontinuity, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So he's this kind of breaking that fourth wall thing, which they've done a couple of times, haven't they, throughout Doctor Who, or a few times. So it always fascinates me, dude. First of all, what do you think to that? Do you like it when they do that? Or do you think it's a bit weird? But more interestingly, why did they decide to do that? It's kind of weird because they've tried different things with Doctor Who over the years. There was one episode, wasn't there? One story where at the beginning in part one, there was that voiceover with the text that was running up the screen, wasn't there? Do you remember what story that was?
Oh, it always bugs me. I always think back to this.
Yeah.
Story is it?
So they've tried to do it where they've kind of it's almost like a sitcom based thing where it's like previously on Doctor Who. It's that kind of vibe when they do this sort of thing. And so what are your thoughts on this breaking the fourth wall and the Doctor addressing the camera to speak to the audience? I don't find it bad. I'm just more fascinated as to when they were writing this and shooting it, who turned around and said, I think we should do this where we break the fourth wall.
Was that story we were trying to think of, the Deadly Assassin, mate? Does that start with a scroll or something? Anyway, I don't know, because that's going to re-bug me, because I was thinking of that the other day, funny enough. But as for this one, it really annoyed me, actually. In fact, it got me off on a bad footing with the story, because as soon as Tom came out the TARDIS and started talking to the camera and breaking the fourth wall, I just felt that was just Tom doing it. I felt like I don't know, it could have been in the script, it could have been the director that decided it, but to me it felt like, Tom's doing that because we know that he felt he could carry the show on his own at this point, which is why he didn't particularly gel well with Louise Jameson for a long time, because he didn't want her as the companion. This is all stuff that's well known. So I just wondered if that was Tom just trying to prove, look, see, I can talk to the audience. I don't need a companion, because he wanted a lettuce or something, didn't he, or a parrot to take over? He didn't feel he didn't think he needed a companion. So that irked me, mate. To be honest with you, I'm glad that it was only that tiny bit at the beginning, because if he'd have done it from any of the rest of the story, it would have annoyed the hell out of me. To be honest, it can work, Sometimes I don't mind a fourth wall break. I think we've had it. Do we have it recently with Shooty or something? Oh, yeah, we had it when Miss Flood turned and said, never seen a TARDIS before. I didn't mind that. It can work, But this particularly, I don't know why, but I didn't like it. It got me off to a bad footing with this story. And thank God Tom is really on form for the rest of the story. It is literally just that little bit, I think. But I don't know who made that decision, mate. My gut feeling is it was Tom. I think if Philip Hinchcliffe had been around that day, he probably would have had a word with Tom, because those two got on very well, and I think they respected each other. He probably could have talked Tom round if it was Tom's idea. Because I know that Philip Hinchcliffe apparently was very cross with Tom, because the Doctor was supposed to threaten one of the warriors with a knife at one point, but Tom Baker refused. And that's the scene where he says, or I'll kill him with this jelly baby. And apparently Philip Hinchcliffe wasn't there that day it was recorded. And when he saw it, he was furious. So I think little Tomisms that crept in when, people like Philip and that weren't around. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And that one did not work for me at all. If it was a Tomism, I'm blaming Tom, but it might not have been him. But I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it, when this happens? And your instincts were correct, dude. It is the Deadly Assassin.
Yes.
Where he narrates over this weird scrolling text. It looks almost like an old sort of... The style of the text, if I remember correctly, looks like you're about to watch a Conan the Barbarian film or something. It's got this really old school Red Sonja Conan kind of feel to it.
Yeah, that's right. I remember it, yes.
Yeah, and there's another story. I'm sure it's happened a few times. Weirdly, with Tom's Doctor more than anyone, I think. But there's what's the story where he looks at the camera and he's like, he says something like, "Even the sonic screwdriver is not going to get me out of this one."
Was it the Invasion of Time?
It probably is.
One we did recently, wasn't it? Where he said that. I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and then he gives this weird look and then walks off after he's done it. So anyway, it's a weird thing when it happens, but it's fascinating to me because we're like, I always feel like, when was that decision made? Like whose idea was that to do it? Because it's not an easy thing. Well, I say easy. It's not a decision that something like Doctor Who would. It's not the type of program that you would typically see. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, there are some shows where it's like the opposite. It's like you almost rely on that. Like remember back in the day, like Adrian Mole and, those sorts of programs, it relied on that because that was the style that, you had that connection with the character because you felt like they were talking to you personally through the screen. So you built up that relationship and that relatability with the character you were watching. And so if you didn't have that, it wouldn't have as much of an impact. So it was very cool. Whereas something like Doctor Who, and they almost mess with it almost to a degree where you think, what are you trying to do here? So remember in Remembrance of the Daleks, when Ace just walks out the room and there's the TV on, and the announcer's like, and coming up next on BBC One, blah, blah, blah. And it's about to say Doctor Who. It says, whatever.
Yeah.
And then it cuts and stuff. So that's not really fourth wall, because you haven't got an actor looking into the camera saying anything, but you've got this kind of weird kind of paradox where Doctor Who is on the TV in Doctor Who. So anyway, I just find that stuff a bit of a mind melter.
See,
a bit weird.
I like the one in Remembrance. I totally get what you mean. See, that to me is an example of one that works, because they cut it off just so it's left to your imagination. Are they going to say Doctor Who, or could have been something else? Could have been, could have been something else. But then you've got scenes like the Seventh Doctor in Doubt of the Bannerman turning to the camera and saying, "Oh, I think I may have gone a little too far." So directly talking to the camera, which I don't think works as well. So, yeah, I think it depends on how it's delivered, or the scene, or the context that it's in, I think. Yeah,
agreed. But you're not a fan of it in this one, though.
No, it really annoyed me, mate, honestly, because it's sort of the first scene with the Doctor, and I was like, oh, dear, what's that about? I didn't like it. Did not like it.
Yeah. I read you, do. I read you. Okay, let's talk about some characters in this story then. Let's talk about, let's do the Sava team first, because we see those guys straight away pretty much.
Yeah.
And they're in it a lot. We don't see the Tesh until later on in the story. And so we've got, the shaman guy, he's a guy called David Garfield. He played a character, Neva. He was one of those supporting cast members that I absolutely love. We love these dudes, don't we? Where they've read the script and they know exactly what's expected of them. They've taken it seriously and they're proper going for it, but not to the extent of, chewing the wood or anything like that. But they understand like the intensity that's needed sometimes. And there's a couple of times in this where he's really miffed about what's going on. And then there's another scene where he's kind of tripping out a little bit. He's laid back, and something's happened to his mind. He's in another world almost, and they can't get through to him. And then at the end, he sort of comes into his own and attacks the thing. And so a really good character and a really good performance. I really liked it. I loved it when he was on screen, because he provided a bit of like something different. And some of the things they had him dressed up in, like one of his hats was like an old space suit glove.
Yeah, I love that hat.
That was glued onto something else and whatnot. And there's a scene that's funny at the beginning where the Doctor turns up and he's got this weird contraption and he's dancing around the Doctor and shouting at him and stuff. So, a complete lunatic, but the actor took it seriously. Like he wasn't there to, he wasn't sort of rolling his eyes like, oh yeah, another cheapo sci-fi thing that nobody watches. He was like properly, earning his money.
Who was the actor, mate? Is it
David Garfield?
Yeah, no, I mean, Neva is the kind of part that is over the top, and is, if you get an actor that doesn't quite get it or does go a bit OTT, could easily not be taken seriously, but David Garfield, you're right, he absolutely gets the role that he's playing. He's having fun with it, but he doesn't go too far with it. I thought he was very good. Yeah, really, really good. And I did love that scene when he's shouting around the Doctor. I was kind of imagining what that would have been like in rehearsals, because they used to rehearse the whole episode, didn't they, before they filmed and stuff. And I bet they had great fun with that. But yeah, very, very good performance from David Garfield. And this is Neva. Yeah, I thought it was very good.
Yeah, no, he was good. And we've spoken about Caleb, who was played by Leslie Schofield. His character was good. He's in it pretty much all the way through, really. So he's a bit of a schemer and a little bit of a devious one, if you like. So he's kind of underhandedly trying to and the Doctor picks up on it a couple of times where he feels like his drive to do things is like politically motivated, right? So he speaks out, doesn't he? So even though he wanted to have the Doctor killed, fast forward like literally 2 minutes where they're in the main thing with the leader, and then he does a 180. He's like, actually, I believe him.
Yeah.
No, I don't think this is the evil one. And the Doctor looks at Leela. He's like, yeah, this is a bit of a play. 15 love to him sort of thing. He's, he's doing the tennis scores and stuff. But he's a kind of an okay character. I like that sort of, because we've seen that so many times in this sort of infighting that you have and power struggles and stuff like that. And this is a classic example of that. So didn't have quite the same energy as David Garfield, Leslie Schofield, but he was still all right though. He had that, more than anything, he had that cool facial expression a lot of the time where he's got that sinister, the cogs are turning all the time. How do I overthrow power and take control sort of thing. So he was okay, but just didn't quite have the same. He was a bit more chill with his sinister stuff.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I was thinking the same thing as well. It's like when he does change his opinion very quickly on Doctor, it's like there's no, oh, sorry, I tried to get you killed, or, there's no sort of, oh, thanks for that. I'm glad I didn't have you knifed to death with a Janus thorn or any of that. But no, performance-wise, he's pretty cool. And like you said, you can't have them all as mad as Neva. You've got to have a balance of different levels of energy. Otherwise, that would be crazy. So yeah, he's a good balance to that, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Who was the guy that played the leader of the tribe until Caleb takes over at the end?
Is that Andor? Victor Lucas. He was.
Victor. He's
the guy with the beard. He sort of starts off quite strong, but then the poor guy seems to get. I'm talking about the character, not the actor, by the way. The character seems to get more and more confused as the episode goes on, doesn't he? I felt almost a bit sorry for him by the end, because at the start he's like having Leela's dad taken out and killed, which is quite a nasty way to start the episode, actually. And he's quite strong. You think, yeah, he's the leader and all. But then by the middle of it, he's just like, he doesn't know what's going on, does he? He's like, is there a great one and all this? He's totally confused, which is great. It's a good progression. But I think he did a good, job in the role, by the way. I think he played that very, very well. So I must stress, I'm talking about the character losing the plot, not the actor. Yeah, but he was good. He was good. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Andor.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, Victor Lucas. Yeah, yeah, he was pretty cool, and I agree with you as well. He starts off like he's got complete control. The only person that he sort of toos and throws with is Neva. So at the beginning, like he's always like, "Let's do this," and Neva's like, "No." We have to. I've been. God's spoken to me, and we'll do it this. And he's like, "Well, don't take too long about it."
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a to and fro between those two, but with the rest of the tribe, he's kind of got his hand firmly, gripped in control there. Like you said, it's not until we get further into the episode and the stories after that it kind of loses it a bit, doesn't it? Not anything that he's doing really it's his fault. It's just like there's been sort of conspiracy against him, mainly by Caleb and stuff. But that role is pretty cool though.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, not too bad. Okay, what about some of the... So there's some other characters who play the Sava team. Only a few sort of speaking roles, really, that sort of come to life in a few scenes. So, and a lot of the actors are, they've not really been credited with anything else outside of Doctor Who, really. So, we don't really see those guys too much. Let's talk about some of the Tesh characters then. So those guys, before we speak about those guys in general, what do you think to the old outfits, dude? Because I thought it was turning into a Christmas episode. It looked like they were Santa's elves knocking about.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely a look. That's for sure. Yeah, I wasn't sure about them either. Very fetching hats. There's some good headgear in this episode.
Yeah, and they do look. I mean, they've been designed and put together pretty well, because they've got the entire face paint thing going on, haven't they? They've got this green paint over their face, which kind of melts into the colour of the costume a little bit. And, they've got this creepy stare about them. So in terms of providing a contrast between like the kind of savage, old school, primal nature that we have with the Seva team, this is like a polar opposite. These are much more kind of chill, calmer, more reliant on technology, engineering stuff. And so that was done really well, like the big contrast between the two tribes, which was cool.
Yeah.
You know, which we find out later was because they were both descendants of this crew. Like you have like engineers, and then you had like, you know, some other people. So that kind of makes sense, I guess, from a certain point of view. But they look pretty cool. That's
another element of the story I really liked, actually, that they, like you said, this contrast, they were so different, but it turns out they're from the same, you know, the same place and stuff. So that was, again, another great idea that's thrown in there into the story. I think it's Jabal is the main space guy. Whatever you call it. What were they? The Tesh.
The Tesh.
Yeah, he's like the main guy, the one that's, you know, first interacts with the Doctor. And again, I just couldn't understand why the Doctor realizes that Jabal thinks he's the great, what's he called? The Lord of Time, you know.
The Lord of Time.
The Lord of Time. Yeah. Why the Doctor doesn't play along, and he could have probably got this sorted a lot quicker if he had, instead of just, you know, getting tied up. That's the example of the padding, actually. So I think this is where now I remember, this is where episode 3 started to lose me, is where the Doctor and Mille get tied up to this weird machine that's going to break down their particles, and it sort of goes, there's like a countdown, and the Doctor gets a mirror out, which this feels like it's been done before. So I think that's an example of a bit of padding in this story where it was starting to lose me, if you like. But just want to quickly go back to Jabal, because Leon Eagles, great name, he is, to me, I thought he was quite cool because he's very much on the verge of going over the top. Almost there's a little bit of campness to him, but he manages to just restrain it enough to be creepy. And I think a lot of it, he does a lot of like dead behind the eyes, almost evil thinking with his eyes. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? There's something about his performance which is quite creepy. And he gets a fine line between being creepy and not quite going over the top with it. So I quite liked him as the Tesh sort of main guy. I thought he was pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. He was good. And again, a bit like David Garfield playing Neva, this guy knew what was expected for this role, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So he wasn't trying to cheapen it in any way. He knew exactly the type of character that he was and that the Tesh were overall, which is so important. I think when you're trying to create that contrast between two different types of people, you really need somebody who can nail that look, not just say the lines, and do that stuff, but you need someone that's going to have that whole vibe about them. They know exactly. So those two are really good. And good name, Leon Eagles, as that. And just to pick up on your point about padding, I felt exactly the same, dude, in episode 3. So it all comes to a head where the Doctor realizes that when he planted himself into the data core, I think it was, and creates a split personality, that from that point on, that's all we needed to know. That was the crux of the story, if you like. But it seems to go on for so long after that. And then into part 4 as well. So for me as well, I was thinking, shall I check Twitter here? Shall I go on Instagram or something? I'm not sure, because we just didn't need to know anymore. It was just like, this is what the Doctor had got up to when he came here previously. This is what's happened, and how do we fix that? But it just seemed to go on for ages from that point. So I read you, dude. Yeah,
it's a good point actually, mate. Maybe it's like the first 2 episodes build up the mystery very nicely. I guess when it's explained in episode 3, you then just got 2 episodes of the Doctor trying to rectify it. So maybe that's why it starts to lose it a bit. Good point.
Yeah. Before I talk about Louise Jameson as leader, just very quickly, there was another guy from the Sever team. His name was Thomas. Yeah. And he was also in it, pretty much throughout the entire thing. You could tell that he had a little bit of a thing for Leela.
Yeah.
Because he tries to help her at the beginning, and he takes out the guy that was going to shoot her with the crossbow at the beginning. Yeah. And then you kind of question where his loyalties lie, because he's in cahoots with Caleb a lot, throughout the second half of the story. And then he sort of flicks over again, and he's like, actually, no, this guy's going to get us all killed. What's he doing? So there's a bit of that going on, but that guy was okay, and you can tell that the love interest was there for Leela.
Yeah. So Thomas, played by Brendan Price. I'm glad you mentioned him actually, because I was thinking of mentioning his name when we were talking about him before, but we kind of moved on. But I think he was good at it, and I was wondering if I'd imagined the sort of is there a romance thing or something going on between him and Leela, because they did seem to care for each other, but it was left quite ambiguous. It was never sort of built up on. So, but I kind of like that. It's kind of just left open to interpretation. But I felt there was something between the two of them, and I thought he was a good character in it. He added to the rest of them, added something different.
Yes, yeah, and he's been in some cool stuff as well.
Has he?
He was in the Sweeney. Remember the Sweeney?
Oh, it's one of my favourite shows, mate. I love the Sweeney.
Yep. He was in Space 1999. He has been Emmerdale, which is, me. There was a really cool program back in the day, Robin of Sherwood. He was in that for a little while.
I remember that, yeah. Was he in Boone?
He was not in Boone.
Oh, okay.
No.
That's a shame.
I'll tell you who was in Boone, though.
Who?
A guy called...
Michael Elphick.
One of the actors called Lloyd Maguire, who played one of the characters called Lugo in this. He was in Boone.
Was he really? Oh, wow. Incredible. There you go. I just threw it in because for anyone that hasn't listened to last week's show, very randomly, the TV show Boone came up in the conversation. Now I'm trying to bring it into every story we review, but there you go.
Yes. So, a bit of research there. I remember that. I don't waste my evenings.
There you go.
Clearly. Right. So Louise Jameson, then, her first appearance as Leela. Actually, dude, 1 second. Yeah. Andrew132 over on our Discord server. He was the guy that gave us loads of information, facts about Boone.
Yeah. I knew somebody out there would remember it. Thanks, Andrew. That was cool.
Yeah, that was cool. So, thank you, Andrew. Louise Jameson. First episode as Leela. And we're right in saying, aren't we, that behind the scenes, Tom Baker wasn't too fussed, was he, about having a new companion. And Louise Jameson has gone on record when I think she mentioned it a few times when we've seen her at the BFI about Tom being a little bit frosty and a little bit not as convivial as you would hope for somebody who's starting out a brand new role in a new TV show like this. But in terms of her performance throughout the episode, kind of expected Louise Jameson as leader for this. Really, it's difficult to say anything that's hugely standout, and it's difficult to say of anything that's lackluster. She was just Leela. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
But so she was good, and she's in it obviously a lot and stuff. But just her character doesn't seem to change much in her time on the show. I could be wildly wrong. That's just my opinion. But she's like the when you see her in this story, she's very, very similar, almost the same as when you see her in, I don't know, Talons of Weng Chiang, that sort of thing. Yeah. So what do you feel about that?
I don't know, mate. I'm slightly more, because I absolutely love Leela as a companion. So I thought it was a pretty strong introduction for her, to be fair. I thought her performance was great. I just love, again, this goes back to what we keep saying, an actor when they totally understand what they need to do with the role they're given to make it work. And I think Louise Jameson's a fantastic example of that. She totally gets this character, and she plays the naivety of Leela so well. The stuff with the Janus thorns, and she's so quick to sort of to kill off anything she needs to kill. And then she's got this lovely sort of innocent side to her that just wants to learn. And she's so caring towards the Doctor in this as well. So I thought the relationship between her and the Doctor really builds beautifully. The way that she warms towards him after an episode or two. So I thought Louise Jameson was fantastic in it, mate. I know what you're saying. You're not saying she wasn't fantastic in it. You're just saying she's consistent and she's always good. So I totally hear you. Honestly, I just can't praise Louise Jameson enough as Leela. I think she's great in the part. So I just really liked her in it. I just love Leela as a character. I think she's great.
Yeah, she is cool. And don't get me wrong, she had a good performance in this. But if in, say, 3-4 months' time, if we start talking about the face of evil, I won't be able to say, oh, do you remember this amazing bit with Leela? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean that's a good example, mate, because I, as I said, had almost forgotten this story completely. So that kind of says it all, really. Like, I love Leela as a character, but do I remember anything about her from a introductory story? Up until yesterday, no. So yeah, it's proves your point, really.
Yeah, but she is good though, of course.
Yeah,
Louise Jameson as Leela. Yeah. And then Tom Baker then as old Fourth Doctor. So we've been a bit up and down with Tom the last few weeks as we've reviewed the last of his stories. And it's no surprise then that, you know, as we've reviewed some of the stories that are maybe, I mean, this is right smack bang in the middle, really, of his run, or maybe like in the first third. So he's still got that kind of, because remember when we reviewed Meglos, and you could tell that he was kind of winding down a little bit. I think is the best way to put it.
Checked out a bit.
He had checked out a little bit, yeah. In this one, do you feel like that was the opposite in the face of evil? Because it's kind of, I don't want to sound like a scratch record. And it's maybe because we've reviewed all of the strongest stories from Tom already. But I feel like we've reviewed in the last few stories, he was good in this one. He was good. But again, there wasn't that time where I thought this is like epic peak Tom Baker as the Doctor, you know. So I thought in the same way that Louise Jameson was really good, but I just cannot think back to a scene where I was like, right, that if you were writing a top 15 moments of Tom Baker as the Doctor, I couldn't pull out anything from the face of evil. Right. So he was good, and there's a few scenes where he's okay, and you know he's got that range that we love from Tom Baker, where he's got the thoughtful kind of mulling things over, not looking at the actor but delivering the lines, which he does, you know, from time to time, which is really good. But I didn't see any of that kind of real big intensity that we see in even some other stories in this series, in this season. So I don't know your thoughts on Tom, mate, but a bit like Louise Jameson, good, but just nothing that's going to grab you and be like, right, okay, that was peak Tom.
Yeah, possibly not peak Tom. It's weird though, because you used the word intense there, and one of the things I've written on my pad is Tom's very intense in this story. Because I think perhaps we're sort of looking at it from two totally different ways. Because when I say Tom's intense in this, I just mean he's very serious, and he's, you know, there's, like you said, there's a lot of serious dialogue in this, and the Doctor's very much into what's going on, but there's not many comedic moments that we normally have with the Fourth Doctor. So, I mean, well, there's fun moments. There's like the bit where he gets tied up and he shoots, you know, the rope, and he gets some nice dialogue, let's say. But I do find with Tom that sometimes he mumbles a bit. So sometimes I'll hear a line which could have been delivered, you know, a really fun line, and I kind of feel like he throws it away a little bit. So there was a lot of that in this, I felt, where he had some really good dialogue, but he kind of just throws it out very quickly. So maybe not grabbing the script by the horns. But I did think Tom was good in this, though, mate. I did think, I thought, you know, his whole look, he looks very healthy. Like you said, this is sort of right in the sort of core part of his tenure, if you like. So it's, you know, it's not peak Tom, but it's right in the middle of some great stories at a great era for his Doctor. So, yeah, I thought he was good in it, but I think I know what you mean. That maybe not a standout story for him, which is surprising, really, considering the Doctor is the main focal point of this. He's got his blimmin' head moulded into the side of a wall, for goodness sake. So, you know, if I was Tom reading this script, he would. I guess you would either love it. I mean, if it was me, if I was Tom reading the script, I would think, I love this. Like, the Doctor is, you know, the core element of the story. Or you could read it and see it's about, you know, it's a bit egotistical. I don't know. Don't know what Tom's thoughts were when he read this script, but I feel like he perhaps could have gone a little bit further with it. So I think I know what you're saying, but still very good, consistently good, as with Louise. So, yeah. Yeah.
And as I said, he is good in it. He is definitely good. Maybe it's just down to the writing, dude. Maybe it was just he didn't have the opportunity to cut loose in a few places. Yeah,
I don't know. He gets some good stuff to work with, mate, I think, in the script, but I'm not sure it always comes off. And one thing I did feel whilst watching this, and maybe it's just because we know about the stuff behind the scenes, it could just be that it's in the back of my mind, I did feel like the whole way through, Tom was trying to carry this on his own. And I just felt like, yeah, you sort of feel like you can tell that Tom didn't really want a companion, you know. He does work well with Louise Jameson in this. I mean, they do, you know, he is looking at her and he is engaging with her, but you can still feel this sense of he just wants to, you know, be on his own. He doesn't, I think we all know that he loved Elizabeth Sladen. He was gutted when she left. He did The Deadly Assassin. He felt like he could just be, you know, he could carry the show on his own. And I do get the sense that he's still in that mindset when watching this, really. Like, you know, when the Doctor doesn't want Leela to join him in the TARDIS at the end, I feel that's Tom talking, you know, like, come out of there. I feel that's Tom, not the Doctor. But anyway, yeah.
No, I read you, dude. Yeah, and I totally get that, dude. Now that you've said that, yeah, it does feel like he wants to solo this thing and he's not too fussed about having another companion. He strikes me as a sort of guy in real life, you know, that just doesn't, well, at the time, just didn't like change, which is because whenever he went through phases of, like, you know, new companions and stuff, or if we had a new script editor come on board or something like that, we had this like little wobble moment where we had to sort of adapt and get used to it, and, you know, everyone else is just cracking on and whatever, whereas Tom's got this sort of not sure, you know, I'm not sure about this, and that translates into kind of a negative sort of feeling that he's putting out a little bit, you know. So I don't know.
This could be the start of it, actually, mate, because you're right. When we go into the next season and Graham Williams takes over as the producer, we all know, you know, that the behind the scenes become much more difficult. Tom becomes more difficult to manage. He starts throwing in lots of ad libs and stuff. He's still kind of working. I was going to say restrained. You know, him and Philip Hinchcliffe got on well. Philip knew how to handle Tom. So he's still kind of playing by the rules at this point. But maybe you can see the rebellion in Tom starting to come out around this point, and then obviously exploding next season a lot more. So yeah, and it could all be due to that. I mean, a lot of people don't like change, you know. It's like a comfort blanket, and he'd obviously got very comfortable in the show at this point. So with changes going on, like Liz leaving, Philip then leaving, maybe it just, all those things just combined, you know, to create what happened in the next season. So in the behind the scenes, I mean.
Yeah. No, I read you, man. Okay, and then music-wise, dude, Dudley Simpson once again hired to do the music for this one. I didn't actually put Dudley Simpson or the music on my notes in this, just because there wasn't much in the way of music to comment on, really. This wasn't... Again, it's such a shame, dude. I hate saying things like this about certain stories, but it's one of those things, again, where you're like... You're down the pub and you're like, dude, give me your top 5 Dudley Simpson stories. You just wouldn't pick this one out, mate. You know, there's just not enough... And not enough of a memorable sort of thing or a motif that you hear repeatedly, like some other stories that I've found. You know, you don't finish watching a story and then you're whistling that thing around the house for the rest of the day. So not terrible, not bad music at all. Dude, I'm so on the fence with this one. I really am. It's like, I've said that so many times, but it's so true though. It's like, it's not bad. It's not brilliant. It's not, I don't know. It's just there. Do you know what I mean? It's just there. So I don't know what your feelings are on old Dudders and the music, but just fairly quiet for me.
I don't mean this in the disrespectful way it's going to sound, but it's paint by numbers Dudley. It's and paint by numbers Dudley is great. This just comes exactly back to what you just said. It's not bad. It's not amazing. It's just good. You know. So I'm not complaining about Dudley's music. It's still wonderful, but it's just nothing standout in this one. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No standout. Right. Anything else on your notes, dude, before we whack a score on this?
No, I don't think so.
No, you good? Right.
Yeah.
By the way, this is our last. We will get round to reviewing Shada in whatever form we're going to review that in.
Shada!
But this is our very last full live-action Tom Baker Fourth Doctor story.
Is it?
Yeah. After this, we are all done apart from Shada.
I didn't realise that. I thought we'd still got some to go. Wow. We've done all of Tom.
Yeah. This is it, mate.
Wow. I did not realise that. Okay.
So, to finish out then, no pressure on Tom's final story on the Big Blue Box. What's your score on this one?
This one, for once, was fairly easy for me to score, despite my conflicting views on it. It's a 7.
A 7,
because
okay.
It's good. It's just right there. See, 7 to me is a good story, a good concept, but just doesn't go any higher. Stuck in that one gear, like you often say, mate. Just, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit lower, dude. I'm going to give this a 6.
A 6, okay.
A 6, yeah, because I feel like it's not middle of the road as in a 5, where it's like just mediocre. I think it's better than mediocre, but there's just not enough in this story that makes me want to come back and pull it off the shelf if I want to watch a Tom story or a Leela story, or, there's nothing, bar a couple of little bits. There's no real kind of, it's not on the shelf going like, pick me, because, you love this bit in it. It's like there's none of that going on, unfortunately. So it's not a terrible story. It's not a great story. It's just a good watch. And it's slightly better than your average middle of the road 5-ish. So, yeah, a 6 from me, dude.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. Alrighty, so 7 from him, 6 from me. What did our listeners think then over on the socials? We only had a few in this week, so over on the X, on the Twitter, we had Chippy T that says, good concept, this going back to fix a mistake you don't know you've made, which has had terrible consequences. The idea is a bit Planet of the Apes, though differently dealt with. There's something Star Trekky about it too. Sometimes confusing but fun. A 7 from Chippy T. Do you know what? That's exactly bang on.
Yeah.
Because over the last couple of months, I've not binged it, but I've dipped in and started to watch the original Star Trek series.
Oh, I love the original series.
Because I'd never seen it before. I'm not much of a Trekkie. But yeah, I've started watching them, and there's been a couple of episodes where they've gone to a planet, and the planet's surface is either like, whatever. But just the feel of it is absolutely right. It does feel a bit classic Star Trekky.
He's dead, Jim. I love the original Trek, mate. I feel like watching that now.
There's a serious situation. So, moving on. Edward Gillooly says, an underrated classic from one of the show's greatest seasons. The idea of the people being descended from the ship's crew, although not new, is done well. Zwanen being a mad computer, which the Doctor imprinted his mind on, is great. An excellent introduction for Leela, an 8 out of 10.
An 8,
Nice.
Okay, cool.
Nick H says, often overlooked as it's surrounded by some of the best classic Who ever, but a decent story and a great intro for one of my favourite companions, a 7 out of 10.
7.
And lastly on Twitter, Tom Turlow says, it's a story that should be a classic but isn't. The central idea is really, really clever and unusually sophisticated for the Doctor Who of this era, but it's never quite as good as it could be. Leela is nicely introduced and the jungle sets are fantastic, and Tom is still in his pomp and is great as always, although apparently he was becoming a bit of a problem behind the scenes.
Yes.
A fun story, even if it's not as great as it might have been, a 7 out of 10.
That review actually sums up my thoughts on this perfectly. Like, I could have just said that, and this podcast could have been 2 minutes long. That is perfect.
That is a good one, yeah. Thank you very much, Tom.
Yeah.
And then over on Facebook, we had Charlie Turner that says, underrated this one, just barely gets into my top 10 of Tom, coming in at number 10. It's not perfect, but the villain of this one is one that I find to be scary. A 9 out of 10, as it's fantastic. It's a fantastic introduction to one of my favourite companions of all time, but I honestly don't know as to what was going through their heads as they made the Doctor break the fourth wall. He's not Deadpool, for goodness sake.
Well, yeah.
Very distracting, to say the least. Apart from that, a great story. Thank you very much, Charlie. Mark Hugill says, a kind offer of jelly babies and the Who Am I cliffhanger are the only highlights for me. Otherwise, fairly dull. A 5 out of 10.
5?
Middle of the road for Mark. And lastly, Darren Sykes. It's a long review. I won't go into all of it, but the headline is probably my least favourite of season 14. But that's not to say it's a bad story, as a season contained 3 classics, being Deadly Assassin, Robots of Death and Talons. So one of the rare occasions in classic Who where the Doctor comes face to face, no pun intended, with the consequences of his previous actions. And then he goes on to say, a satisfying conclusion, however, and great to have Leela on board, a 6.5.
6.5, okay.
Out of 10, obviously. So the average dude, I'm going to say, is a 7, it feels like.
Yeah.
We had a 9 in there, which is great. From Charlie, and then overall on Twitter, it was 7s and an 8. So with my 5, and about an average of 7.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, possibly next week if we can align our recording schedules. But the next story that we're going to be reviewing, now that we've done we will put Shada in there, dude. I think there's a couple of different animated versions of it. I've seen 2 different versions of it in animated form. So whichever one we pick, that's the one that we'll do the review on. So that's coming. Mm-hmm. But the next story is going to be another final story for one of our doctors.
Yes.
So what is it, dude?
You've been putting this one off, mate, because you don't want to finish this era, and I get it. So if we can record next week, and we're hoping we can, we will be reviewing the 7th Doctor story, The Curse of Fenric.
No.
We can't put it off any longer. Although we may have to put it off longer, because if we can't record next week, then we will be having 2 weeks. It will be in 2 weeks' time. We'll be coming back with a review of the Space Babies. So we'll either be back next week with The Curse of Fenric, or we'll be back in 2 weeks' time with the Space Babies. Depends how the schedule works out. But either way, there'll be a round table next week. So yeah. For sure.
Oh man.
But hopefully we'll be back next week with Curse of Fenric. I know.
My favourite classic.
We are slowly getting through them all, mate. And this one has been on the schedule for some time.
Yeah, we've not done a McCoy in bloody ages. The last one we did was 194. That would have been Dragonfire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, episode 194, which is a couple of years ago. So we've longed it out as long as possible.
Yeah.
The Curse of Fenric. Okay, cool. So that's coming up. And I think on that chirpy note, dude, we'll wrap it up there for episode 396.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Big Blue Box podcast. That was 396. And thank you all to those of you that have sent in your reviews and your scores out of 10 over on the socials. Very much appreciated, as always. As Adam said, the next story on the list is The Curse of Fenric, our last ever McCoy story. So we're going to get that done and out the way. So make sure you give that a watch. We'll just keep an eye on the socials. We'll let you know if that's a definite for next week. But if so, make sure you give that a watch. Get your DVD out, your BBC iPlayer, whatever it is. As always, we'll be asking for your thoughts and score, and we read them all out on the episode. In the meantime, make sure you're following or subscribing to the Big Blue Box wherever you get your podcasts, so you won't miss an episode when it lands every Friday from myself and Adam. Plus, you'll get the monthly roundtables with the writing team as well. You can listen for free over on the website too, www.bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk, and you can read all the reviews and articles from our writing team. We're on the socials too, links on the website and the free Discord server, so check that out as well. And don't forget to remember to check out the Geeks Handbag YouTube channel.
Geeks Handbag. Go check out the Geeks Handbag on YouTube, on all the socials. I'm everywhere.
It's omnipresent, all over the place.
Exactly.
Annoyingly. Joking, of course. Adam's on the socials under the same name, The Geeks Handbag, so go and follow him in there, go and chat lots of geeky stuff and Doctor Who, and of course the YouTube channel as well. So until next week, or whenever we record, my name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember, Lonzy.